I've created dinner mondu, French fries, French dressing, French bread, Peru.
Hello and welcome to Intoxicated Masculinity. If it's Wednesday, we have a cocktail video coming at you. Today, we are going to continue our inadvertent February French themes for another cocktail that was most likely not invented in France. But that's fine. It's still a good and interesting cocktail. Today we're going to talk about the French 75. The French 75 is actually a relatively simple cocktail, but it's also a champagne cocktail. You don't see those a ton. I mean, they're not uncommon, but definitely not what you typically order when you go to Applebee's. And I thought I was kind of interested in this one because it's just kind of a simple setup. We are going to be using some very nice champagne, inadvertently, for this particular drink. The cocktail was supposedly invented in 1927. However, just like last week, this one's kind of a, it's muddy exactly when it was first created. I believe Harry Craddock's Savoy Hotel cocktail book is the first place this cocktail appeared in a sort of nationally known cocktail book. So again, the history of the cocktail, and by the way, in case it wasn't obvious, maybe it was to some people, it's named after a gun, one of the French cannons, a 75 millimeter cannons, because a 75-inch cannon would be really huge. Yeah, so it's named after the 75 millimeter French cannons, and I guess it'll get you blasted. But I think that's enough about the history of the cocktail, because again, we don't know that much about it. And let's get on to making it and drinking it. So we're back, and as you can see, we've got 3 ingredients. There's going to be a 4th ingredient, which is our champagne. So very simple cocktail. It's actually kind of reminiscent of the daiquiri in some ways. It's very similar to the daiquiri in some ways. But let's get started. Our first ingredient is going to be our simple syrup. Now, in going through and researching this cocktail, there is a bunch of different ratios that people use. I've seen people use up to 2 ounces of gin. I have seen people using only teaspoons of simple syrup. It's kind of all over the place, so I'm going to go with what I think is a pretty accurate ratio or set of ratios, and it's going to be relatively true to what Harry Craddock did in the Savoy Hotel cocktail book. And yeah, so we're going to start. We're just going to do 1/4 ounce of simple syrup. I think that's going to be plenty here. When it comes to our lemon juice, I'm going to do 3/4 ounce. Now, in Harry Craddock's book, Savoy Hotel cocktail book, he shows this as a 2-to-1 ratio of gin to lemon juice, so I'm going to kind of restore that. The difference in his book, this is a punch, so essentially he's making this for multiple drinks. So that's why you have to break it down to the ratios rather than going with the specific amounts he says. Finally, it very specifically calls, so Harry Craddock doesn't say Plymouth Gin. Most of the contemporary recipes that I've seen have all said Plymouth Gin, so that's what we're going to go with. And in this case, we're going to go with 1.5 ounces. Toss that right in the shaker. And finally, we're going to get some ice in our shaker and shake this thing up. So toss that in the shaker, give it a good pound, give it a good shake. All right. We're going to go ahead and double strain that into a chilled flute glass. Now, the recipe calls for 4 ounces of champagne. I'm not going to measure champagne. We're just going to top it off. So we're going to use our... So full disclosure on this part of it, I realized at the last minute I did not have any champagne. So I went out to a local liquor store. They didn't have anything that I was looking for. And I went to the second liquor store, which was about ready to close. So we ended up with Moët Chandon, which is a very, very nice champagne. And we are using the Brut, which is what I would recommend for something like this. All right, go ahead and open this up. Shalom. All right, and we are just going to top that off with our champagne. Perfect. Just a bit more. All right. I'm sure that's somewhere in the general vicinity of 4 ounces of the Moët Chandon. And, oh, excuse me. We're also going to top that off with a lemon twist. Drop that on in. And there you have your French 75. That's really interesting. It's very much a champagne cocktail. I mean, again, 4 ounces of this is champagne, so that's going to be your primary flavor profile. It does give it a little bit of sweetness. You're getting some of your citrus around the outside. The gin is not coming in very strong at all. I think if I had to say with the gin, you're sort of getting the light herbaceousness, maybe a little bit of pine coney ginniness, but it's very much in the background. It's very pleasant. It is what I would describe as a light cocktail. This is very much, this is not going to bowl you over with flavor, but the flavors that are there are very good. Which I actually like sometimes. There's sometimes you don't want a super heavy, thick kind of a cocktail. This isn't that. I mean, you can be sipping these all day, and I might. So yeah, what we have here is just kind of a nice light champagne cocktail. It's sort of adding onto the champagne again with a little bit of herbaceousness, a little bit of citrus, and just a little bit of sweetness. I think I would definitely stick with a 1/4 ounce of simple syrup. I think anything more than that, and it's going to start to feel heavy, and that's not something you want. So, if you were looking for a nice, light, champagne-based cocktail, I think you're going to like this a lot. I don't think you need to use Moët Chandon as your champagne. I think any Brut will do just fine. If you are into sweetness, you could try a Prosecco. I probably wouldn't go with the Prosecco on this. I think it's going to be a little bit too sweet, but again, everybody's palate's a little bit different. Anyway, on that bombshell, I want to thank everybody for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a good drink, and have a good day. Watching me open bottles.